On September 1, 2025, the world was rocked by China's sudden suspension of all Boeing-related manufacturing and assembly within its borders. This wasn't just a trade spat, it was a seismic shift, instantly plunging the global aviation industry into chaos. For decades, Boeing and China symbolized economic cooperation, but that partnership has now collapsed. The shutdown halts not only final assembly but also a vast network of suppliers, leaving Boeing scrambling for alternatives that don't exist overnight. The ripple effects are immediate. US manufacturing is in crisis, airlines face delivery delays, and investors watch billions evaporate. Hundreds of thousands of workers on both sides of the Pacific now face an uncertain future. This move exposes the vulnerability of the US economy to decisions made half a world away. It's a power play that's rewritten the rules of global trade. In this report, we'll break down how we got here, the economic fallout, and the high-stakes political chess match now underway. We'll hear from experts and workers whose lives have been upended. The Boeing shutdown marks the start of a new, more volatile era in international relations. The world is watching, and the stakes have never been higher. Stay with us as we unravel this unprecedented crisis. To grasp today's crisis, we need to revisit Boeing and China's long, intertwined history. It began in 1916 when Boeing's first aeronautical engineer was Wang Tzu, a Chinese innovator who helped launch the company's success. Fast forward to the 1970s, Boeing became one of the first US companies to re-enter China, selling jets as China's economy opened up. As China's demand for aircraft soared, Boeing became its top foreign supplier, and China, Boeing's largest international customer. Over time, the relationship deepened. Boeing outsourced key manufacturing to Chinese firms, integrating Chinese-made parts into every major jet program. What started as in China for China became in China for the world. This gave Boeing a competitive edge, but also handed Beijing enormous leverage. Chinese-made components became essential to Boeing's global production. Now, that leverage is being wielded with devastating effect. The partnership that once symbolized cooperation has become a source of crisis. The consequences are global and immediate. China's announcement was swift and strategic. All Boeing-related production was halted for a regulatory and safety review. Officially, Beijing cited quality concerns, but few believe this is just about safety. The move is widely seen as retaliation for recent US restrictions on Chinese tech firms. China's message was clear: cooperation must be mutual, and support for US industries is not guaranteed. By targeting Boeing, the crown jewel of American manufacturing, China aimed for maximum impact. This marks a shift. Beijing is now willing to absorb short-term pain for long-term strategic gain. The shutdown signals China's readiness to control, not just participate in, global supply chains. The era of unchallenged US economic leadership is over. The world is witnessing a new phase in the US-China rivalry, one where economic interdependence is a weapon, not a shield. The stakes for both nations and the world have never been higher. The message to Washington: the rules have changed, the consequences are just beginning to unfold. The economic fallout was immediate and brutal. Boeing's stock crashed, erasing billions in value, and the company froze hiring and spending. If the shutdown lasts, Boeing may have to halt its main assembly lines, an unprecedented move. The impact ripples far beyond Boeing's 140,000 employees. Over 12,000 US suppliers, many small businesses, now face a sudden collapse in orders. States like Washington, Kansas, and South Carolina are bracing for mass layoffs. The US Chamber of Commerce warns that up to 1 million jobs could be at risk if the crisis drags on. Commercial aircraft are America's top manufacturing export. A production halt threatens the entire US trade balance. Airlines worldwide are scrambling as deliveries stall, jeopardizing their growth plans. The pain isn't limited to one company or industry, it's a systemic shock to US manufacturing. The threat of recession looms. The shutdown has exposed just how fragile America's industrial backbone has become. The crisis is real, immediate, and growing. The question now: how much worse will it get? And who will pay the price? The shutdown's impact goes far beyond economics. It's reshaping politics, communities, and global alliances. The White House faces a dilemma: respond forcefully and risk escalation, or back down and appear weak. In towns like Everett, Washington, Boeing isn't just a company, it's the heart of the community. Mass layoffs threaten not just jobs but entire ways of life. Social unrest is brewing as families face an uncertain future. Internationally, US allies are rethinking their own supply chains, wary of over-reliance on any one country. The crisis is accelerating a global shift toward regional resilient supply networks. Meanwhile, Airbus, Boeing's European rival, stands to gain as airlines look for alternatives. China's selective targeting of Boeing, not Airbus, underscores the political nature of the move. The balance of power in global aerospace may be shifting from the US to Europe. The world's economic map is being redrawn in real time. The long-term consequences could be profound. To make sense of this crisis, we turn to leading experts. Dr. Emily Vance calls China's move a watershed moment, shattering the belief that economic interdependence would prevent such disruption. Beijing is betting it can withstand the pain of decoupling better than the US, she says. Aerospace analyst Richard Abalafia warns, "You can't just move aircraft production overnight. Boeing is stuck. China hit their biggest vulnerability." General David Petraeus sees this as economic statecraft. China is leveraging its supply chain power to counter US tech restrictions. Washington must respond carefully to avoid a wider conflict. Dr. Mei Lin from Peking University offers Beijing's view. This was a defensive move. The US restrictions threatened China's future. The shutdown is painful but seen as necessary to force new negotiations. The consensus: this is a turning point in US-China relations. The old rules no longer apply. Both sides are recalculating their strategies. The world is watching to see who blinks first. The stakes, not just jobs and profits, but the future of global order. The crisis is as much about power as it is about planes. The next moves will shape the world for years to come. Behind the headlines, real people are bearing the brunt of this crisis. In Renton, Washington, David Chen, a third-generation Boeing worker, says, "This company is in my blood. Now every day we wonder if it's our last." In Wichita, Kansas, Maria Flores, who runs a small parts shop, faces layoffs. "Boeing is 80% of our business. I've had to tell my team we may have to furlough. It's heartbreaking." In Tianjin, China, a Boeing engineer shares, "We were proud to build for Boeing. Now our governments are fighting and we're all losing our jobs. It makes no sense." The shutdown has fractured communities and created unexpected solidarity between American and Chinese workers. Their livelihoods are intertwined, their futures uncertain. Political decisions in Washington and Beijing have upended lives on both sides of the Pacific. These stories are a stark reminder: global trade isn't just about profits, it's about people. The crisis has turned collaborators into casualties. The human cost is mounting. For workers like David, Maria, and the engineer in Tianjin, the future hangs in the balance. Their voices must not be lost in the noise of geopolitics. The world needs to remember, behind every policy, there are lives at stake. The true cost of this crisis is measured in families, not just dollars. Their stories demand to be heard. The Boeing crisis has landed squarely on the president's desk, presenting a daunting challenge. The administration faces pressure from labor to act fast, and from foreign policy hawks to get tough on China. A high-level task force is scrambling to assess supply chain vulnerabilities and find emergency alternatives. But there are no quick fixes. Building new manufacturing capacity will take years, not weeks. Diplomats are working overtime to rally allies, but many are wary of being caught in a US-China crossfire. Congress is divided, some demand tariffs, others want massive subsidies to reshore production. The crisis has become a political football, complicating any unified response. The administration must balance protecting American industry with avoiding a full-scale economic war. Every option carries risk. The stakes: millions of jobs, the health of the US economy, and the stability of the global trading system. The path forward is uncertain. The world is watching Washington's next move. The Boeing shutdown is a wake-up call, exposing the fragility of global supply chains and the risks of economic interdependence. Washington must act fast, working with industry and allies to protect jobs and stabilize manufacturing, while engaging Beijing to de-escalate. Long-term resilience must trump efficiency. Diversify supply chains, invest in domestic production, and build new international partnerships. The era of single-source dependency is over. The US-China relationship needs a new framework, one that balances competition with cooperation on global challenges. The decisions made now will shape the future of American manufacturing and the global order. This is a moment of crisis, but also of opportunity, to build a more secure, resilient world. The story isn't over. How should the US respond? What's next for American industry? Join the conversation. Your voice matters.